Aikwe, Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today I will be talking about my review for Darcy Little Badger's A Snake Falls to Earth. What the hell happened to the... There we go. Before we get started, I just want to thank Living Corrido for sending me the advanced reader's copy of this book. I do have a finished copy, but I will be holding this one up as I talk about the review, but I will be going over the cover art with this one. So stay tuned for that. I also want to start by saying that there are a couple of issues happening in Canada right now. Please check out my raise awareness links down in the description down below. There is flooding, people need help, as well as during this state of emergency that Canada is in, there are people being arrested for protecting their own land from another pipeline. Surprise, surprise. And Canada government isn't doing anything about it, aside from letting the oil companies dictate who goes to jail. So please check out my raise awareness links down in the description down below, and donate, share, get the word out. Last little disclaimer, I just want to say that I am not your token Indigenous reviewer. I'm Yurok. Darcy Little Badger is Lipan Apache. Indigenous tribes, nations, and peoples are not monolithic. We all have our own individual histories, stories, teachings, etc. Some things may be similar, but we are not the same. So please just know that going in, as well as I encourage you and implore you to seek out in other Indigenous reviews. Just because I have a certain viewpoint on this book doesn't mean that it's like the end all be all for Indigenous reviews. Like, please check out other Indigenous book reviewers. I'll have them down in the description down below as well. Alright, now that business is out of the way, let's get to the fun. This is Darcy Little Badger's most recent publication, A Snake Falls to Earth. This is one of my most anticipated book releases of 2021. I have to let's get into the summary. So we have two perspectives in here. We are following, is it Nina or Nina? I think while I was reading it, in my head, it was constantly Nina, but I know that others can pronounce it Nina. I don't know what Darcy Little Badger had intended as the pronunciation for this character's name. But we are following, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to call her Nina. So we are following Nina, who is a teenager who is the Lipan girl in our world who believes there is something more out there. There are stories circling around, I don't know if in general or by her family, that talks of old stories that she still believes in. In fact, she ends up being told an old story from her great-great-grandmother that she is bent on translating because her grandmother only spoke Lipan and Spanish. And a program very similar to Google Translates wasn't able to translate it. So Nina spends years trying to deconstruct and figure out this story. We are also following Ollie, who is a cottonmouth, which is a type of snake. He lives in a land of spirits and monsters. And much like any other snake, he is kicked out of the house and he has to go fend for himself and learn how to live on his own. He ends up meeting some friends along the way that help him out. Neither Nina nor Ollie are aware of each other until there's a disaster that strikes Earth that ends up having an effect on one of Ollie's best friends. Because of that, it drives these two worlds together. Makes it so that Ollie and Nina have to work together to figure out how to help each other. I will say this took me a little bit to read. I've started it in September and finished it a couple days ago. It is now late November. Partially not the book's fault, because from September through the beginning of November, all I wanted to read was scary, spooky books. This was slower than I had anticipated. I always am worried about dual perspectives because there's always one perspective I prefer more than the other. And unfortunately, that was the case here until we got into the meat of the story and started to figure out how these two characters ended up interconnecting. Ultimately, I was loving Ollie's perspective. I wanted to explore more of this world of his. I wanted like just more of him and his friends. It was adorable. I grew up on animal stories. This book did inspire me to look further into it. I actually have a stack of books from my mom's curriculum resource center. I'm really interested in checking that out. But what was fun was that just about when I was done reading this, I ended up listening to a storyteller who I believe is Yurok, and it was just fun learning some of the aspects of it. So he told stories, and of course it was animal stories, and he explained that the reason why we tell stories about animals is because typically, more often than not, there's a lesson involved, whether it's asking for help or like don't scare certain people or like be nice to each other or something. There's some kind of lesson involved, and the reason we tell these stories about animals rather than is because we don't want to talk behind someone's back. We don't want to be talking about bad about someone when they're not there, or if they're passed, or if they've passed on. So it's like, otherwise, like someone's great auntie or something is going to be the butt of a joke because, or like, didn't learn this lesson, and so now it's a lesson for everybody. No, it gets turned into an animal story. That way the auntie can be forgotten about that lesson and it can move on. So that I really appreciated and really enjoyed. Saw this storyteller at a event for kids, and he ended up saying, like, you know, some of these stories are from my family. They're from this, like, a particular story was from his great-great-grandmother. He had a couple other stories that he made up himself and was encouraging the kids, going, ask your parents, ask your grandparents, like, do you have any stories? And if they don't, he's like, make one up. There's no harm in that. And it can be your story. And I thought that was really cool. Like, reading this, it was really fun to kind of go back and just kind of remember all the animal stories that I kind of grew up on. And I think that's why I like really enjoyed Ollie's perspective a bit more. Not that Nina's portions were bad. It was just moving a little slower than I had wanted. It didn't grip me quite as much. We are kind of Nina is a part of our world, but it's kind of futuristic in a way. There's some climate issues that I could easily see happening now. There's some technology that if it it doesn't exist, it feels like it should here shortly. So just that kind of aspect. And I enjoyed Nina's parts when it came into fruition, how her story is connected with Ollie's. So ultimately, I ended up giving this 3 stars. It wasn't bad by any means, but I felt like there was too much. That sounds like I'm contradicting myself because I just said that Nina's wasn't as gripping to me. I feel like there was so many ideas put into this. Like, I wanted that we got a little bit of everything, but I wanted more of everything, if that makes sense. So like we got to kind of explore Ollie's world, but I wanted to explore more of it. We kind of got to explore Nina's world, which is here. It's our world, but it's like, it's not quite, and I wanted to explore more of that. When it came to Ollie and Nina working together, I wanted more of that. There was a lot of stuff that I wish was expanded upon more. It's almost 400 pages, it's 372. This could have been a series, I feel like. I think I said that with a Lots Away, that if there was a series about it, I'd totally read them. I still agree with that. Just because I enjoyed that world so much. This, I feel like I want a series to be able to expand on both worlds and the magic system and the technology and everything. I feel like it would have encompassed a lot of the details that Darcy Little Badger had put in here, but then expand upon further. That being said, this is also young adult, so I don't know. Like, I feel like it could work. Ultimately, like I said, this was a great book. I didn't have a connection to Nina, and I think that's ultimately what frustrated me, was that I wanted to connect more of a connection with all these characters, but Nina especially, because she seemed like one that we should be connected to, considering she was one of the perspectives. So that, and it didn't feel like there was much of a threat the whole time. They were talking about the nightmare and the king. So anytime an animal person comes to Earth, they end up getting hunted down. This was amped up to be this big threat, and we hardly got to see it at all. And so it never really felt like there was any peril. It was all really convenient. There's this magic system that they call world bending. Different, like there was no real rules to this, which I get that some magic systems just don't, there's no explaining it, but it but this was explained, but it wasn't explained enough to determine what, perhaps the one sister was better at world bending than the other, who knows. But that was one thing that I was like, wait, what? It just kind of got me confused. Editing Lita here. Apparently I forgot to talk about and film the finished copy of Snake Falls to Earth, so here it goes. So I absolutely love this cover. It is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite colors, so it worked perfectly for Indigathon's prompt of read a book with your favorite cover on it, or favorite color on it. But I personally, what I really enjoy about Darcy Little Badger's books so far is the naked cover. And so if you don't want to be spoiled by this, I apologize, but much like with A Lot's Away, the naked cover is just, it's a part of the story. If you read the book, you understand it. So yeah, I just absolutely love it. And of course the contrasting color, or complementary color of the dust jacket is just extraordinary. So that is my review of A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger. If you've read this, let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Please, no spoilers. So yeah, be sure to check out my raise awareness links down in the description down below. Otherwise, I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I will see you again in another video soon. Chew.